and welcome to the Garvey Bray fruit collection. Today we're going to have a short workshop about how to do the late winter, early spring pruning to maximise fruit production and bush health. But first of all, a tool talk. Now, obviously secateurs are the first ones to think about for pruning these. Now, all of these tools should have been getting a nice winter service, but the weather stopped that particular workshop from happening. So I'm going to take these home and give them a nice tidy up. It's pretty simple. Undo the bolt, and then you can use the tools like this one here. It's a Felco sharpening tool, or you can use an oil stone, and I have an oil stone here. It's the sort of thing you'd probably want to borrow from someone who's got one, because they're probably quite hard to come by. And you smear a small piece of oil on the stone like that and just rub the blade. Another thing to have handy is one of these small hand saws. This is quite a good one because you can fold it up, put it away, keep it in your pocket. And this is especially good for some of the older, thicker growth that the secateurs won't handle, that you can get in and make a nice sharp cut with these. And then there are loppers. They're all manner of loppers, but I find that these ratchet ones save people from, trying to cut thick wood that's resisting. I'll just show you how they work. So the ratchet motion makes a little cut each time until you get to the end, which these ones aren't behaving. Typical. And just another idea of the tool talk, especially when we're cutting this amount of wood, please never ever try and help the cut by twisting the cutting implement. Not only does it potentially harm the tool, but you can make scarring and tissue damage that won't heal as well. So we'll have a go with this blackcurrant here first of all, and the general principles you can read in learned tomes like the RHS here, which will take you step by step through it. But I find that these make it all the more daunting, and you think, am I doing this correctly? Whereas if you understand the bush and try and read it and understand why you're pruning, then it becomes much more intuitive. So with this one here, this is a well-established bush that has probably fruited very heavily. Is that right?
It has, yes, very heavily.
The only thing about it is, though, it's becoming crowded with age, and not only does the crowding mean that it's quite difficult to get it to fruit, but it also encourages disease, potentially mildews, especially if we do get a warm, wet spell when the fruit's just trying to ripen. You can get moldiness on the fruit. So we're going to try and open up the middle. That's the first thing. And I think that it looks quite drastic to take out such large stems. But in order to open up the middle, I would take this one out.
Yeah. You wouldn't really want them crossing anyway, do you?
You don't want any wood crossing. So any wood that's crossing and rubbing against another piece of wood can come out. So that one there. And the other thing to do is to cut as quite close as you can to where the stem is coming from the main stem. And the reason for that is because that is more likely to heal quicker because of the kind of tissue that you get there. If you were to leave the stub, that can sometimes be an area where the rot starts to go back and you get dead wood, which can encourage diseases like coral spot, which is not something that you'd want. So you continue to look at the bush. There's a bit of dead wood So that can come out, again, right to the base. Any of the branches that are thin and spindly.
These two crossing.
Yeah, I haven't taken it out yet.
No, right, but you're going to.
I'm going
yes,
to.
Yes.
And
Here as well. You've got far too many together.
that's right.
Yeah.
The other thing about those ones there, as well as being very crowded,
Yeah.
is that they're far too close to the ground here.
Yeah.
So when you get the berries, they're going to hit the ground and get dirty. So rather than take the entire branch out, I'd keep that one on the ones that are upright, but the ones that are quite low down, again, quite hard back, and again, not leaving a stub. Sometimes you get growth that's come away from the plant and is rooting into the ground. As long as it's upright, that can be left. But again, it's this central area that is potentially the problem. And then new young stems like that that are coming up from the base, we've already got one. And the other thing that I was going to talk about was reducing last year's growth. You can take these back to perhaps 2 to 3 buds.
Why do you do that?
And that is because you want to encourage this kind of shoot to appear. And this is a fruiting bud. This will just produce more leaf. The fruiting bud is the one that's got what we call a spur. These shoots here, well, that is actually going to be turn into one like this with lots of fruiting spurs on. Whereas the ones, they can be, you can be slightly more generous with the amount of wood that you leave.
Right, okay.
One thing I find handy when I'm doing this kind of job is to have my secateurs in a holster. Not only does this make me look like the consummate professional, but it means that I'm not constantly having to put the secateurs down on the ground or in my pocket and things like that. So it's worth investing in one of these just for making the job easier. Here's an example of why we're removing the dead wood. It's called coral spot fungus. Nectaria cinerabarina, and more often than not it is not going to kill the rest of the plant, but if the plant weakens at all, then the spores are here to immediately attack the plant, so remove anything like this as well.
Okay.
Having mentioned earlier about the coral spot, I just realised that people might think there's a bit of a quandary going on because we've mulched it with dead wood. The thing about coral spot, it does tend to only attack the bark on thin branches of particular species. And most of the chippings here are probably softwood, which it doesn't attack. So it's just in case you were thinking, why do we remove dead wood when it's covered in dead wood?
Yeah.